And thank you to the caucus for all the work that you've done and continue to do for people with disabilities. It's a pleasure to be here. You know, we've got a number of members here in the legislature that are firm committed to helping people with disabilities. And I want to talk to you a little bit about some of my work and some of the things that I'm interested in helping people with disabilities. But I do want to recognize Ed Turner in the back. You know, you look at all the lobbyists in the General Assembly that are walking the halls every single day. Let me tell you something. Ed is known by everyone. He gets total access to anyone that he wants, and I bet you if you look at a scorecard of wins and losses, he has the most wins of any other lobbyist up there. So give it a hand for Ed Turner. Ed makes the rest of us look good, and so we're real grateful for his advocacy as well. And so it's really nice to be here. It's the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's the 30th anniversary of the Virginians with Disabilities Act, and that was signed into law by Governor Chuck Robb at the time. And it's really a civil rights document. And civil rights, as you know, is something that has to be worked on. It's not something you can take for granted. It's got to be something that you continuously work on to improve, whether it's employment, education, housing, transportation, all those things. We're trying to create a community where everyone has full accessibility and everyone's treated the same. Whether it's voting, and we deal in the legislature a lot with voting. A lot of people try to block people's access to the voting booths. And many people in this room have fought tirelessly to make sure that people with disabilities have access, whether it's no excuse of voting, absentee voting, to allow people to vote whenever they need to before the election. But there's also things that we deal with in voter ID law, and that's something that impacts the disability community because there's a lot of people maybe that have physical disabilities, maybe they don't drive and they don't have a driver's license, or they don't travel and they don't have a passport, or they're not enrolled in a university or something like that. So it's harder for people with disabilities. And policymakers need to think long and hard about our policies that we put in place and how they impact the rest of the community. And don't get me started about why we even think we even need a voter ID law to begin with. We certainly don't, because there's not a lot of fraud out there. But those are the kinds of things that people like me and the entire Virginia delegation are fighting for to make sure that we have accessibility at the voting booths. But one issue that's very important to me, and I'll tell you it's the reason why I even ran for office in the first place. See, I believe in the Hubert Humphrey form of government, where he says the role of government is to take care of those in the dawn of life, our children, those in the twilight of life, our seniors, and those in the shadows of life, the sick, the needy, and the disabled. That's why I ran for office. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about is working to solve our Medicaid waiver issue for people with disabilities. We have in Virginia 10,000 people that are on the waiting list, waiting for services. Of that amount, 5,000 are on the urgent needs list. And when you're on the urgent needs list, it means that you are just one thing away from being homeless and needing access to health care. We need to, as a Commonwealth, we need to change that. We need to make sure that people get the services and the treatments that they need. And I think this is very much a civil rights issue. And I pledge to continue to work along with my side-by-side with my colleagues here to make sure that people with disabilities are not discriminated against, that we continue to work at this. And I can tell you personally, even because it's something that you've got to keep thinking about, I have maybe events or something like that, and I don't even put sometimes on the event or even think about the event, is it accessible? And I get phone calls from a lot of my supporters asking me if it's accessible. And that's something that I need to do a better job of doing. But it's something that we all have to work at, and that's my point. We all have to work at this because it is civil rights, because it's an important thing in people's lives to give them full access and full equal opportunity. And I continue to pledge to you today and in the future to continue to be that advocate, to stand shoulder to shoulder with my colleagues here in this room and fight for the rights that you continuously to fight for. So thank you again for having me today, and thank you for all that you do for people with disabilities.
We'll now have remarks by